What's going on, FOVOS? Tonight, please help me welcome our special guest, Wade Thomas. Wade is a business coach, speaker, and author with more than 2 decades of experience helping leaders, entrepreneurs, and small businesses grow. He's also a BNI friend, and now he is my coach. And we're jacked to have him share his knowledge with the group and beyond. The gates are down, my friend. You are in the fortress. And I'm going to let you take it from here. Thanks for coming on, Wade.
All right. Thank you for having me, and thanks for that introduction.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and add more into it so that you know a little bit more about who I am and who's going to be talking to you over the next 45 minutes or so. So for most of my career, I was a corporate executive. I spent most of the career working with businesses and their leaders, helping them put structure to their talents, helping to make a difference. It was pretty cool. Unfortunately, as I rose the ladder, I eventually got to the point where I was too far removed from what really got me jazzed up, too far removed from my passions. I got caught in a corporate grind, which I'm sure a lot of you can recognize that feeling. So about 11 years ago, I made the change. I stepped out of corporate and I started coaching. I had a single focus. I want to help people build businesses and careers that actually support the life they want, not just consume it. And what I've learned, especially working with solopreneurs, is this. Success isn't about doing more. It's about doing the right things in the right order with a structure that you can trust while staying true to who you are. That's what I'm passionate about, bringing structure to the chaos without losing the heart or losing the soul of what got you to where you are in the first place. And so that's why today I'm going to talk about how to stop chasing gigs and build a business that works. We're going to talk about profit acceleration. And with that, I'll jump right in. We will monitor the chat, so if you have questions throughout, feel free to pop in there. And I'll also have some time at the end for questions as well. All right. Takes a while for the slide to change. Here's the reality, right? You have a great week, then nothing. You land a project, and you're right back chasing the next one. Does that feel familiar? Yeah, it really does for me. You know, it's working hard, but having that inconsistent income, getting those feast or famine cycles. You're always chasing that next gig, the next job, with no predictability. That's kind of the reality of what a lot of us are faced with. And it leads us to the trap. So what do? We just try more things. We do more additions, more posts, more networking, more groups, but nothing really changes. And here's the reality. You're not stuck because you're not working hard. All of us work hard, I'm sure of it. You're stuck because your effort isn't focused. You're always starting over and over again. It's what I like to call the Frankenstein business. It's a little bit of everything stitched together, hoping it works. You throw all these ideas together, you're doing all these different things, and you just hope it works. So you have this Frankenstein, and maybe it's going to get off the table, maybe it's not. And I'm going to illustrate this a little bit more. I'm going to tell a story about a Frankenstein that I worked with. He was actually a life coach. He had one core business once upon a time, working with kids. He felt a lot of the same things that we feel, always chasing that next piece of work, the ups and downs in a business, the roller coaster, no real traction. So what did he do? He started adding different service offerings. He started working with different target audience. It wasn't just kids anymore. Now it was businesses. It was corporations. It was other groups and organizations. He was trying just about everything, throwing it at the wall. What happened? His business actually shrunk. What was going on is he was stretching his efforts so thin, and his time and his resources were going across so many different things instead of just one. Think about a fire hose. Without the hose, what goes on there is just a big lake. What the fire hose does is it focuses the water. That lake isn't going to do anything to put out a fire. But you stick the hose on there, all of a sudden you have this power. You have this power that has an immense impact on actually putting out a fire. Same amount of water, just focused. That's the difference between a Frankenstein business and a focused business. this is what the heart of what we're going to talk about today. So what do successful businesses do differently? First of all, they don't rely on randomness. A lot of times our days are reactive. What comes up, we deal with. We come up with an idea, we throw it in there. What a successful business will do is they'll operate with structure. They'll focus on key drivers. They figure out what really moves the needle in their business. And then they build consistency so that they're not reacting every day. Every day isn't different. Every day becomes consistent. It becomes a system. It becomes predictable. It sounds boring, but it'll probably add 10 years to your life. What these successful businesses do is they build consistency, and consistency is never an accident. It has to be intentional.
What is it, 60 days, Wade?
What's that?
To be consistent over 60 days, it becomes a habit?
Yeah. Yep. It's actually a little bit different for everybody, but generally speaking, yeah. And that's what you want, is you want a business that feels like a habit, that is running without having to think. That is a dream. Because what that does is it allows you to think about things that are more productive. It allows you to think about your craft. It allows you to think about new opportunities, whatever the case may be. So how do successful businesses actually work? Well, every successful business, whether it's yours or whether it's a multi-billion-dollar company, it runs on drivers, certain things that drive the business. And each of those drivers impacts profit. These are all levers that you can actually control. Things that you can, think about it as a machine. You pull the lever, something happens. Every business has the right, may have 80 levers, but only 3 of them move the needle. You ignore the other 77. This is what I call the profit equation. You could build a mathematical equation that says if you do this, this, and this is what's going to be different in your business. This is what you can expect. And it's not accidental. Successful businesses don't get there by accident. They don't get there by luck. They get there because they have focus. And focus is really, when it comes down to it, focus is everything. So we'll get to the heart of the matter. It's 5 profit drivers. And this is true of any business. It starts with leads, getting leads. Second piece of it is converting those leads into buyers. Then there's pricing and, getting money from the buyers. Then you have the 4th thing, which is client value or lifetime value. It's how much money can you get out of the client over the course of their life and your life. And finally, there's efficiency and cost. Those 5 drivers drive everything in a successful business. By the way, they drive everything in an unsuccessful business either. Every business problem out there is a broken driver. There's something not working in one or more of these areas. So let's dive into each of these areas. The first one is leads, something that we always think about. And what the thing about leads is if you have inconsistent leads, you're going to have inconsistent income. If you have consistent leads, then income is going to be consistent too. Those 2 things are just tied together. A lot of us get our leads through referrals. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more later, but referrals are not a system. So often referrals come when they come. And the trick is, how do you get more predictable on referrals? You need to make sure that whatever messaging you're putting out there, it has to match your audience. And you have to figure out who that is and make sure that your messaging hits that audience. If you have multiple audiences, you got to have multiple messaging. And the more audiences you have, the trickier it gets. So that's another thing of focus. The closer you can get to one audience, the easier you'll find it. A strong offer will drive response. We're going to talk about offer a little bit more later. But a lot of times, we might run Facebook advertising. We might run all these different lead generation things and find out we don't get anything. Well, and we blame the advertising. A lot of times it's the offer. Um, it really starts with positioning. Better leads come from better positioning. And you have to get really specific here. So I work with something called a market dominating position. And that's something every business needs to have before you even start. It's the centerpiece of what you do. So what is a market dominating position? A lot of us are familiar with the concept of unique selling proposition. That is what you do in your business that's unique, that your competitors don't do. It's a very common marketing philosophy. It's incomplete. So what a market dominating position is, it's that unique selling proposition, what you do better than everybody else, that matches your buyer's hot buttons. That is a big one. No matter how cool you are or how good you are at what you do or how great your offering is, if nobody cares about it, if it doesn't give them something that they want but don't have, or take away something they have and don't want, nobody's going to care. So I'll give you an example of this. And back in Detroit, Michigan in the 80s, there was a part of town, there was a bunch of college students and a lot of pizza around it because pizza follows college students. And every one of those pizza places, every single one of them had their own unique selling proposition. One had great crust, one had great sauce, one had great toppings. You get the message, right? Here's the problem. The students didn't care that much about it because they didn't have cars. So it was really hard for them to get the pizza. One pizza company came in, and they heard that. And their market dominating position became, we will deliver a fresh, hot pizza to your house in 30 minutes or less. The company's name eventually became Domino's. I think you've heard of it. That is a market dominating position right there. Why? Because they figured out what their audience needed and they built a unique selling proposition around it. By the way, Domino's could not cook a pizza in 30 minutes when they came up with that. They had to restructure their business. They had to get higher temperature ovens. They had to hire drivers, things like that. They built their business to meet that need. You figure out your market dominating position, you really have an opportunity to do great things. Along with that is having clear messaging around it. So you have to have that market dominating position, and then you got to make sure that you're very clear in getting that message out. You've got to be able to speak to real problems. Again, what that is that's things that people want but don't have, or things that people have but don't want. The other thing too is you got to take those leads down to systems. So often our leads just come in, and you need to think about a referral. A lot of us get referrals, and a lot of times they're one-offs. I'll get a referral from somebody. I'll get a referral from somebody next week, a different person, and a different person, a different person. Maybe next week I don't get any. You got to think about how can you systemize referrals so they become predictable? Can you build alliances? Can you build joint ventures where one person or one company sends you more business, repeat business after repeat business? How do you build those? Same with digital marketing. Make sure that you have systems and patterns with your digital marketing, your networks, making sure that you're hitting the right networks and you're hitting them at the right frequency. Everything you do when it comes to getting leads, you need to have a system, a repeatable system that's predictable. And I'm going to go back to the life coach for a moment. So working with a life coach, he was able to find his market dominating position. And by the way, that was going back to his original, working with the kids. And once he did that, instead of trying to build, 50 or 60 different referral partners across his 7 lines of business, now he's only focused on one. So whereas before he'd have 5 here, 5 here, 5 here, now he's going to do 20 in the same space. So he went out and he found alliances, joint venture partners. He started working with schools and organizations like that in this case. And what that allowed him to do is really just focus in on that one thing. Then he had a system. They were sending him people all the time. He was able to focus his content on what audience. So instead of having to rotate, maybe Facebook's one audience this week, maybe Instagram's one audience next week, maybe YouTube's another audience, he was able to focus in on one core audience, and his content was all hammered at the same. And as a result, he actually did less content but had more impact. He cut down his networking groups. He only went to ones that had the people that he wanted to talk to. So he really focused in. So another big time savings for him. And, he found out that the ones he wasn't going to anymore weren't bringing him business anyway. So you can see the power of really systemizing it. And did his leads go down? Absolutely. His leads probably dropped a good 20%, but he sold more business because he had better leads. He had leads that matched his market dominating position. He had leads that wanted to buy what he was offering. Better leads, not just more. Everybody with me?
Yeah.
All right, good. So we're going to go to the second driver. That's
Mike,
conversion.
you have something to say real quick? Wait, hold on. Mike, you have some?
No. He said, are you with me? I said, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Wade. Go ahead.
Excellent. So the second driver is conversion. So it's one thing to get all these leads. If they don't buy from you, it's not really worth much, right? And so when it comes to conversion, it's really important to start with a compelling offer. And a compelling offer is an irresistible, high-value, low-risk proposition that makes your prospect feel like they'd be crazy not to act. That's what you want to start with. You may get into other offers down the road, but that's the one that has to get them on the hook. It's got to be something that they want but don't have, or something they have but don't want. I'm saying that over and over again because that's so important. You got to understand your buyer. You have to offer them that. So think about in your businesses, what could be that compelling offer? Irresistible, high value, low risk. Oftentimes, this is a service or product that is better. It's a service or product that's faster, or it's one that's more convenient. Probably 80% of compelling offers fall in one of those three categories. Either better, faster, or more convenient. I left price out of there. We'll talk about that later. But if you're competing on price, you're not competing. The second thing to remember when it comes to conversion is most leads won't buy immediately. So when you get in front of a lead, I saw research somewhere, the odds that they're ready to buy, that they're in that mode, they're probably like 7% that they're in that mode at that moment, right? It's very unlikely, especially when you've just talked to them one time. Most leads don't buy immediately. So what does this mean? This means you got to get really, really cool and comfortable with the word no. The more no's you get, the further down the path to yes that you get.
That's hard in the acting community. A lot of people don't like rejection. But then there's a lot of us that are used to it.
I have worked with everything from pooper scoopers to non-fungible tokens and a whole bunch of things in between. None of them like rejection.
Yeah.
You don't have to like it, by the way, but you got to get comfortable with it because most money is made long after the first no. And this is where this is where I'm going with this last bullet. Follow-up is critical. There's a lot of different studies. They say anywhere from 7 to 14 touch points before somebody's going to buy from you. I don't know if anybody knows the real number, but it's not one. And so getting those follow-ups and being continually in front of it is so critical. Awareness alone doesn't convert. We spend a lot of time on awareness. Just cruising my LinkedIn this last couple of weeks, I saw at least like 47 posts from Brad. There's a lot of time on awareness there. And awareness is important. Don't get me wrong, but it's not everything. The key, and really what Brad was trying to get to there with his 47 times in LinkedIn, or probably what he's trying to get to, is he wants to be front of mind when that buying time comes, right? Yeah. When that person, they weren't ready to buy when you talk to them, but maybe on post 35, they are. And you want them to say, oh, look, Brad does this.
Or they're just going to be so annoyed with me, but they're going to see me every day. I like that.
No, that's right. But the reality is you're front of mind.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. That's great, but you still have to get them across the finish line. You have to help them get what they need, right?
Yeah.
Awareness alone doesn't convert. What drives decisions is clarity. You got to have strong messaging in there. You have to be ready for when they do see you, they do see your LinkedIn, they reach out. You've got to be ready with some strong messaging to convert them. And this gets right back to that follow-up. A consistent follow-up is what wins the day. Now I'll give you a story from my own business. About 15 years ago, back in my corporate days, I worked with a leader in the company. Gave him some, did some coaching in-house, worked with him, things like that, a great relationship with him. Then I left. And then, when I left, that was it. End of everything, right? No. When I left and started my own business, I put him on an email list. He consented. I don't just drop random people on, but he consented. I put him on an email list, and he got what I call a drip campaign. So every week, you get a newsletter. Whatever it is you want to give him, great. I do newsletters. For 10 years, he got my newsletter, more or less every week. After 10 years, he had a need. And guess who he thought of? Because on Thursday morning, here comes my newsletter. He reached out. Did he call me and say, here's my checkbook, help me? No, he did not. But he reached out. And that gave me the opportunity to come back and say, okay, what's going on? Okay, I hear you. You want this higher level position in your organization, but you don't have it. I can help you solve it. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what you're going to look like. And here's the investment. Close him right away. Because I gave him a specific, compelling offer. But most of all, I followed up, because consistent follow-up wins. I can't say that enough. Consistent follow-up wins. If you get my newsletter, you'll probably see it, every other week or so.
I think a lot of things with the follow-up in regards to new voice talent, or even some people that have been around for a while, is they're afraid. They're afraid of the follow-up. I know I was for a while. I was afraid that I might get the job. So, but you build up the confidence, and then you're not afraid. But I think that's a lot of new people making their way in. That's where they struggle. The follow-up, you're right, because they're uncertain of their skill set.
Oh crap! I got the job. What am I going to do now?
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right, and that's funny because that is one of the biggest mindset issues, and nobody talks about it. Is a lot of people are afraid of success when it comes to that. Because they have, usually wrongfully, they have this, but they have the imposter syndrome. And I could do a whole workshop on imposter syndrome, but instead I'm going to talk about one of my favorite things, pricing. This is a pet peeve of mine. I could talk for a day on this. So if we get to about 11 o'clock Eastern talking about pricing, let me know. And we'll pull the plug. But here's the thing. Pricing is where many people just leave money on the table. Most businesses underprice. I'd say that's a strong statement, but I'm so confident in that. Most prices underpriced. And why? Because their pricing is based on fear. There's a couple problems with that. The practical issue, there's a psychological issue. I'll start with the practical issue. Small increases in pricing can make a big impact. Price drives profit faster than anything. Why? Because price is one of only two things that goes straight to the bottom line, cost being the other. Because when you raise your price, your costs don't go up, unless it's a coincidence. Price goes entirely to your bottom line. Everything else is affected by your cost of doing business. So that's the practical way. Here's some of the psychology, though. Underpricing doesn't win clients. Underpricing trains clients. It teaches clients that your service must be inferior because you're not charging that much. Or it teaches clients that I should go for the lowest price. Quality doesn't matter. it's really all about low price. Neither one of those things is good for you. You don't want to train your clients with price. The other thing, I said practical and I said psychological, is also an economics piece here. And I could go through the economics for, a couple of days too. But to be simple, most of us operate economically in a space where price doesn't actually make a difference. We don't often believe that. We think that we raise a price, there's going to be a corresponding drop. We actually operate in a space where you can move price and demand won't change in most cases. I'll give you an example of that. McDonald's. Say you're a McDonald's aficionado. You go for your Big Mac every day, and you pay your $5 for your Big Mac. So one day, McDonald's does a huge price increase. They raise it 10%. The price is now $5.50. You're going to walk away from McDonald's? No. You're going to keep paying that $5.50 in most cases. And that's a 10% increase.
A better example would be like a streaming service like Netflix, Hulu, Spotify. They're all gradually raising all their prices. And, with Spotify, if I get rid of that, I don't have any more music. So yeah. I'm locked and loaded.
That's right. Any streaming service is a great example. I love that example because you don't even know when they raise the prices.
Right. You get shocks, a sticker shock.
Yeah. You might not even notice. They went from 10 to 12. What's that?
What kills me is the new people that enter the business and they don't realize that the voiceover business is kind of like driving a taxi cab. The rates are on the door. If you just go to the GBAA rate guide, you'll see that the rates are on the door. Do you really care if the guy behind the wheel has been there for 5 minutes or 5 years? No, as long as you get from point A to point B, the rates are on the door. This is what the new guys don't understand. If you undercut yourself, you're screwing everybody else too.
Yeah, that's right. It's really bad. It's bad for the industry as a whole.
What's even worse, Wade, I just read a Twitter post today that said this person said they do things for free.
Mm-hmm. Well, so here's the message, right? You get what you pay for.
Yeah, amen to that.
Right, and in the buyer's mind, free, that's not valuable. I worked with a yoga instructor many years ago who was offering free classes and then was offering classes where she charged $35. She felt guilty about the $35. So I asked her, how many people are showing up for a $35 class? What's the attendance rate? She goes, it's over 90%.
Yeah.
What's the attendance rate on the zero? Oh, gosh, I get like 10%. Which group are you helping more? You're helping the group that's paying. That's a big lesson. Here's some more pricing reality for you. So now I'm going to get into some math here too. You don't always need more clients. You need better pricing. So could you lose clients if you raise your prices? Yeah. The real question to ask is, how many clients do I have to lose before I make less money? So I built a spreadsheet. I built a spreadsheet on this so you can actually plug the numbers in and show, at my price point with a 30% price increase, if I lose a quarter of my customers, I still make more money. See how that works? You don't always need more clients. You need better pricing. And I have an interesting story on kind of getting to that, the psychology there. Worked with an accounting firm. The accounting firm hadn't raised prices in over a decade. Scared to death that they were going to lose clients. So we took a look at it. We plugged it in. We said, okay, we're going to do a 10% increase. How many clients could you lose? And the answer was, I think about 14 clients. They lost 14 clients with the new prices. They were the same profit. So anything under 14, they made more money. So they decided to go ahead and do it. How many clients do you think they lost? I see a 3. The answer is 0. Not a single client. How many clients do you think they got an email in response to saying, what the heck is this? The answer
Zero.
again is zero. Nobody even noticed. Or if they noticed, they accepted it.
Kind of like the streaming service.
Kind of like the streaming service, exactly. Here's the other thing too: is sometimes cheap clients will cost more.
Oh yeah.
So the example here is I worked with a commercial cleaner, and a commercial cleaner, a lot of their cost structure was in getting the job started, going in, moving the machinery in, getting the crew to show up. A lot of the cost came in there. So they had a 35,000 square foot facility they were working on, and they had 10,000 square foot facilities. They charged a heck of a lot more money for the 35,000, right? Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Place is 3.5 times the size. The reality is it took them almost the same amount of time to clean it. It's very close, and so much of the cost was up front. They were making good money on that. They were making hardly any money on the small ones. And so why would you want to do the small ones? So the answer to that was, let's raise the prices. Let's bring the small ones up to the same price point as the large ones. How many clients do you think they lost? I'll give you the answer. A ton. They probably lost more than half of their clients. How much more profit did they make? A lot. Because now they lost all the costs with it. They were barely break even on those, and they were able to take those crews and find bigger jobs that those crews could work on. So cheap clients were costing them a lot. And so, yeah, they lost client count, but they made a lot more money because they had the right clients. Think about that in your business. You know, some of your work takes more effort and more energy than others. And think about how that's priced. And that's the thing. You know, the one thing I like to say is, you know, revenue numbers are sexy. They're cool to talk about. They're great to talk about over a beer. Profit pays the bills. It's always about how much you make, not how many sales you get. Okay, I'm going to move to driver 4, which is client value. And this is really lifetime value of the client, is what I'm after here. So a lot of times we have one-off businesses, right? So we're starting over every time. We get a gig, we do it, we move on. New client means new hustle, new effort. So much of the energy,
uncertainty too, as well.
And uncertainty, unpredictable, right? Stress.
Yeah.
Don't get started with psychological impacts.
Yeah.
So much of our energy goes into client acquisition as opposed to delivery. So if you can lower that cost of client acquisition, so powerful. The fastest way to grow is to stop starting over. So you want repeat clients versus instead of one-offs. You want to think about retainers and packages, you know, expanding the services. You want to, once you get that buyer into your ecosystem, you want to sell them more and more stuff. Ask Apple, right? You know, ask Android.
Yep.
The money's made because they continue to be able to sell to you. Think about, you know, one client. Think about how you get multiple opportunities. Could you do multiple projects with them? Could you get ongoing work? Could it be a subscription where you're going to do something for them every month? Could it be referrals? You know, example from my own business. I started working with an accountant about 8 years ago, and doing career coaching with him, and in leadership coaching, and it worked out great. Over about a year or two, he had 4 promotions.
Oh, wow.
It was great until, you know, it got along great, and then it stopped because he switched companies, right? So did my job, had a great client for 2 years, so I moved on to another client, right? No. I stayed in touch with him. He brings me in, his next company, he brings me in to work with his team. And then he switches company again. He brings me in to work with him again. And then he gives me 2 referrals. The people that work for him are in different companies, both hired me. And to this day, I'm still getting high conversion referrals from them. And all it took was that effort that first time 8 years ago. And I got at least 7 or 8 jobs out of it and counting. So you want to build those ongoing relationships. And the key here is stop starting from zero. Starting from zero stresses us all out. And driver number 5 is efficiency. And this is, this comes down to cost. Something we probably don't all want to talk about. But you got to start with cutting unnecessary costs. So what is an unnecessary cost? Well, I'll give you a framework to think about. A good cost will help you find a client, get a client, or keep a client. One of those 3. Right? If it doesn't, then you got to take a look at that cost.
So coaching would be considered a way to keep a client, right? Because you're advancing your skills, or what would that be on?
So if it's a voice coach, yeah, keeping a client. If it's somebody like me, it's finding and getting, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So personal development fits into these categories, right? Because it's going to help you find a client, get a client, keep a client, or all 3. Yep. Great question. I love that question.
We have and then finding a client would be a lot of the pay to plays that we work on, freelance sites. They all cost. One way or the other.
But they're good costs, right? Because they'll be find a client.
Yeah, as long as you can raise your pricing. Certain sites.
But go through your subscriptions, go through your apps. Some of that stuff's really cool, but it's not finding, getting, or keeping it.
Yeah.
Right. And you got to be honest with yourself. And I go through this at least once a quarter. And stuff creeps in, right? And because maybe at one time you thought it would find, get, or keep, and it turned out it didn't. I've dropped networking groups because it wasn't helping me find, get, or keep. So take a look at all those things.
And once you do that, right? That's also time. You drop these networking groups that you're going to save you time.
Yeah, you stole my thunder. Once you finish looking at the cost, look at the time. Do the same exercise. Look at where you're spending your time. Does it help you find a client, get a client, or keep a client? There is a lot of opportunity there, I promise you. Think about emails you get. Think about all the time you spend managing your calendar. Think about typing emails. Think about how you're writing proposals. All those kind of things. Because what you really want to do is focus on high impact work. You want to eliminate waste. And you want to leverage systems. And quick example, I spend a lot of time writing emails, writing proposals, writing text messages, writing things to put in the chat in online networking groups, writing B&I commercials, all those kind of things. So I've created snippets. I have an app on the computer where I have a whole email that I can just hit. I can just type in EML. It spits out the whole email, and I just change a couple words. I have XCHT, it's an extended chat, which I drop into the chat in my networking groups. I'm not typing the whole thing. I have proposals built into templates. So I have everything that I do more than once becomes a system. Sure, we're going to have a lot of one-offs, and that's okay. But if I'm doing the same thing more than once, there needs to be a system there. And did it take me time to set that up? Yeah. But after a month, it had paid itself back already because it just shortens the time you spend over time. All right. So to sum it up, this is kind of the big idea. You don't need to fix everything in your business. You just need to improve a few drivers. Think about compounding. So I think many of you have heard the story. If you have a penny and you double it for 31 days, at the end of the 31 days, you have $10 million. That's the power of compounding. And that's what works in your business too. If you take a couple things and improve it, they compound upon each other and they make that difference. There is no single silver bullet. A lot of people are going to sell you a silver bullet. It don't work. I started doing something interesting. I started running Facebook ads through ChatGPT. The web pages that spits out from the Facebook ad at the magical silver bullet they're trying to sell me. Mm-hmm. You should try that sometime. ChatGPT tears them apart like you wouldn't believe. But when you look at them like with that fine-tooth comb, you'll see there's nothing magical. You have to put the work in, but you don't have to remake the whole business. You can do it with many small improvements. And small improvements in the right areas, these create massive results. Systems create that growth. So how it all fits together. We talked about 5 profit drivers: leads, getting leads, converting leads, and pricing. That's your revenue right there. You take that revenue number, lifetime value, client value is a multiplier. It multiplies those results. High leverage when it comes to client value. What efficiency does is it protects your profit. It keeps the profit from leaking out. So it's important, but nobody has ever become wealthy simply from cost control.
Mm-hmm.
You can't save yourself to prosperity, but you can protect yourself. You can protect your earnings through cost control and efficiency. Do you see how everything connects, right? So there's a shift that we all have to make as we grow our businesses. Several of them. You start as a technician, you're really good at your craft. You shift your mindset to being a business owner, you shift your mindset to being a CEO. You make the shift from reacting to leading. You start getting out in front. You start having a strategy. You move from gigs to systems. Your mindset goes from just a series of one-off gigs to a gig being just part of an overall system, of an overall business. And then you get rid of wasted effort. You move from effort to focus. Those are all the shifts that a successful business owner has to go through in the course of their business. So what's been missing? I'll just throw this out there. Does it feel like you've been working hard?
Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe not in the right things?
I mean, I have some systems in place that makes things easier, but I had to work on this over like almost a decade now to get it to that point.
Yeah. So what's been missing isn't more tactics. It's not throwing more things against the wall. It's not adding to the Frankenstein. It's not working harder.
It's being consistent.
It's being consistent, and it's structure and prioritization.
Accountability.
Figuring out what's important and working on it in a consistent, structured way. And it's knowing what matters. Figuring out what are those things that really move the needle.
And one of the habits I'm weak with is like looking. I do post a lot, but looking at all the analytics, I don't know. Like, should I look at it every month? I know I need to look at it and just see what's working and what's not.
It probably doesn't move monthly. I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Well, that's
but
good
it's
to
figuring
know.
out. Yeah.
Like every quarter.
Yep. It's also it's more than figuring out what's working. It's figuring out what will work. That's where the real power is.
Being a fortune teller, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's what we do. How this gets done, and this is where most people get stuck. They understand, but don't implement. You can have perfect clarity and understanding around this, but you got to take action.
Yeah.
You can have the best strategy in the world, but you got to execute it. You can have all the focus, but you got to bring those focus home results. And for that, you need support and accountability.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's what I did to help that along is I started the Jumpstart Profit Lab. And I didn't talk about it earlier, but I do a lot of business coaching work. And my business coaching is quite often with larger companies because, my fees are pretty high. They're out of the reach of most companies that are under $1 million. And that made me feel sad. I really wanted to reach a much larger group of people. I wanted to help people that were like me. And so I started this Jumpstart Profit Lab at $47 a month. So it's accessible to everybody. And basically you're getting a business coach. You get weekly group coaching, comes with video training and workbooks that, you learn on the video. You take the workbook, which helps you apply it into your business. And then you do the group coaching every week, which is where you really kind of get to figure out what's going on, what questions you have, what's working, what's not working, and you get accountability as well. You get business and profit frameworks as part of it, and clear direction. And then and I also throw in what's called the Business Academy. It's a lot of business videos. I haven't counted them all. But it's basically a business education, a practical business education, not theoretical, that you can access at any point in time. And so that's why I started it. starting it up this week, but it's one of those programs that you can start anytime. The idea being is I want everybody that I work with to have clear priorities, make better decisions, get more consistent income, and have a real business. And, a lot of us, are or have worked as a side hustle. I want you, if this is what you want, I want you to be able to step away from that corporate job like I did. I want you to be able to get out and be able to do it and live the life that you wanted to without that life living you. My final thought is you've been working hard. That's what we do. We hustle, just not always in the right things. Hopefully after this past hour, you know what matters. Now it's time to build something that works. I encourage you to either scan the QR code. You'll learn more about the program and have the opportunity to sign up. And then I believe Brad dropped it into the chat as well.
I did. I'm alongside your LinkedIn, your Facebook, your YouTube, and your website. So yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and your book. In the book.
I am my book. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and throw it open if you guys have any questions. I know you asked some as we went, but I'll go ahead and open it up.
I know I have a question. As a voice actor, you don't want to be the generic, what makes you stand out from the rest? Well, I have fast delivery. I have a deep voice. I can do a ton of different characters. So, and the problem is, so can everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So, my branding is, lightning in a mic. I punch every day in the face. I know the people that I target is like people that are high energy, they're producing over the top content, which is combat sports or, anything that's, wild and crazy. And, I think those are the people I'm targeting. But then again, you just kind of made me think about, I have other audiences as well, because I do real estate walkthrough videos. So those people they're not high intensity people. They like to sell houses, but they're a different, different, I don't know what you want to call it, but
Definitely
they're just different.
A different breed of animal there.
And so like you got the gaming people, you got the animation people, they're kind of similar. And then you got the promo fight people. They like gaming a lot, but they're like, really into being high intense. But then you have the real estate people that are just, they're more like, they work hard, but they're more reserved.
Yeah. So you asked me a couple of different things there, and this is something we'll spend some time on outside of this, but
yeah,
a couple of things. And so early on in my business journey, I remember I was talking to a friend of mine who'd been on her own business journey longer than I had. And he says, you need to find your audience and really focus in on that. I'm like, but why would I do that? I'm making, $20,000 here, $40,000 here. Why would I turn my back and not do that business? He goes, you can still do that business, but that's just not where your focus is.
Right.
Right. So you're going to focus your energies on these other areas. These businesses, you're not going to turn them down. Right. And you may do some things to keep it going, but you want to focus your public side and your energies in one place. Second thing is you kind of talk about your energy, right? Yeah. And that you go after clients that are high energy. And so what you've done there is you've figured out part of their hot buttons, I hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
You assume you have. And so that's a big part of it, right? Is your style works for a certain type. And so you focus in on that. Now, you may still do business with realtors, but you're probably going to tell your message differently for them.
Yeah. Right.
And the other thing, too, is everybody does things the same. And in a lot of, skill-based, craft-based businesses like you have, we think about the service, the quality of the service, right? You do so many voices and so forth. But remember, there's a couple other things in there, right, that people are looking for. So that's better. You can always say you're better, but then again, everybody can say they're better.
Mm-hmm.
But are you easier to work with? Are you more convenient? Are you faster? Think about those kind of things as well. And I'll tell you, in the speaking world, which is probably not far off from what you do, in the speaking world, being easy to work with is a big deal when it comes to event planners. You know?
Well, yeah. I mean, in voiceover, being directable,
Yeah.
being able to take direction,
Yeah.
and being easy to work with too. That's a key.
Yeah. So there's a lot more to it than just being better. So those are the things to think about, and it's not something you solve in a couple minutes.
No.
And it may or I'm probably on my 13th or 14th market dominating position.
Okay.
You know, it's something that you tweak as you go because you don't get it right the first time, but also it changes. The market changes, right? And so it's important to kind of always be revisiting that. But great question.
Richard, you got anything?
Just in thinking of that, I've been looking at doing more e-learning. I actually kind of enjoy that because I get to learn stuff when you're doing recording for things. And not only have I recorded e-learning, but I was also and have been a facilitator of e-learning for many years. So I understand it from your side and from those that are receiving the whatever information might be. And the last thing you want is Bueller. You don't want to be boring. And I'm not that way when I read stuff. I can do high energy, or I can do it however the heck you want. That's why it's your words, your way. How do you want it done? And that's what I can do. And I take good direction, like you were saying, because I've been in 40 different theater productions. If you don't take directions, you're not going to be on stage for very long.
Yeah, you're not going to be in 40 productions.
No.
Yeah, that's interesting. Your words, your way. You should be able to get your market dominating position into 1 or 2 sentences. I help you build a business that you can sell tomorrow, but you don't want to. That's my messaging to larger companies. Yeah. So that messaging is great. Having that quick 1-2 line message is so powerful because it brings clarity, it brings simplicity. And you know what? If ever you were to ride up in an elevator with somebody of importance, you could throw it out to them.
Right. That is good. Yeah.
Although I've yet to actually do an elevator pitch in an elevator. It's on my bucket list.
Hey, well, thanks for spending some time with us today. And
yeah, we really appreciate it. I had some trouble getting in to start with, so it's my computer had to restart. It's like, come on.
Say it isn't so. I'm glad you came, Richard. And
yeah.
And anything you want to add? Any closing thoughts? I mean, you want to make a plug for your social media or anything like that?
The best way to catch me is on LinkedIn, YouTube also. I will admit that my YouTube presence as of late hasn't been great, but it's about to get bigger again. So.
That sounds good. You got to keep going, right? Got to keep punching every day in the face.
We're going to punch every day in the face. Love it.
All right, Wade. Well, that's a wrap. This has been a Brad Storm VO production.